Number 3, the plane of the swing is a byproduct of a center and a radius. You have to have enough centrifugal force, though, to create that plane. What do I mean by that? If this was a rope and I put a weight on the end of it, and I whirled this, creating my centrifugal force, but I slowed it down to a point where I lost centrifugal force, the rope would collapse, the weight would change its arc, and therefore there wouldn't be any true centrifugal force or a whirling motion or an arc. But the golf swing's an arc, and to create that arc, it's automatic because the shoulder's making an arc. And because it's making an arc, the left arm in your left hand is making an arc, only a bigger arc than your left shoulder. And as a result of that, if you create enough centrifugal force with the motion so that the weight keeps the rope extended, you're in plane, unless you move the center. Number 4 is the coil. The upper body starts before the lower body and therefore turns more than the lower body. And naturally, when a person starts with the left shoulder, gets his upper body, gets the swing going by starting with his left shoulder, he will turn his upper body more than his lower body, and that will create a wind-up. Women are very flexible. They'll probably turn 4 times as much with the shoulders as with the lower body to get the back wound up. That's why women generally have bigger swings. Men aren't quite as supple, but that varies. Lee Trevino can turn all the way with his shoulders and basically not move his lower body at all. Maybe a 90-degree turn with his shoulders to a 10 or 15-degree turn of the lower body. Whereas Nicholas might go 90 degrees with the shoulders and 35 degrees with the hips. The key is if the shoulders start before the lower body, you get a coil. When that coil occurs is an individual thing. You don't try to hold the hips back. You don't try to make them move. They move passively in response to the upper body. And the movement of them allows the upper body to continue its turn. Now, what I'd like to do is demonstrate this turn, to show you how to think about it, to show you how to do it. And I'm going to ask my able, good playing buddy here, let's show him this thing.
Okay.
All right?
Be happy to.
All right. Basically speaking, to start the golf swing with the left shoulder, I like to show this little idea. If I were to ask you to stand there without a club and just kind of get into an address position and kind of fold up your arms a little bit so we don't get them in the way, and I said, turn that backwards a little bit, you'd do that. Now, to start the golf swing, you actually do the opposite of that. You turn it forward a little bit rather than turning it back a little bit. You just turn it forward a little bit. That's it. Now, what do I mean by a little bit? Gene, take that club and just show them, if you would, a full turn. But maybe you have to face them to show this, Gene. Thanks. If I were to stand here, I'd say he's going to start in this position. And if he were to make a swing, go ahead and make your swing, Gene, he would go to this position. That's this much turn, okay? This much turn is what he just did. Now, to start this golf swing, you might start it by moving this much, or you might start it by moving that much, or you might start it by moving that much. That much is a start of something that much. Now, that's what we're talking about when we start the golf swing. It might be this, might be that, might be this. Basically, if you're shaky and you can't do it, you might need this. If it's going good, you might only need that, but you don't try to plan that. It happens naturally. It's just the beginning of the motion. Something else that I think you ought to know about the turn of the left shoulder. The left shoulder is a complex move. The golf swing's not a circle, it's an ellipse. And that means the left shoulder changes its angle to the ground midstream because the swing becomes an ellipse. In the beginning of the swing, both arms might stay at their normal length. Show them that. In the beginning of the swing, both arms might stay at their normal length. They're basically at their normal length. At that point, the swing is a circle. But at some point in here, it becomes an ellipse. The shoulder then changes its course. The reason why I mention this to you is for this reason. If you try to make the whole turn consciously, you will interfere with the changing of angles of the shoulder turn. Now, what do I mean by the changing of angles of the shoulder turn? Basically speaking, the spine that emanates between the shoulder blades is at a certain angle, and it varies with each player. But the shoulder, this is Gene's angle. His left shoulder should start approximately at right angles to this spine. So what we describe as a start of the swing encompasses a right angle movement to this angle when he starts. There it is. At this point now, his arm will bend, and the shoulder will no longer stay on that angle, but it will go laterally around to accommodate what's happening with the club being thrown into an ellipse. See, if the swing was a circle, it would keep going down, but it's not a circle, it's an ellipse. So the shoulder starts at one angle and goes into another angle. All you have to be concerned with is the first one. Just start the left shoulder. You don't even have to be concerned with the first angle. All you got to do is start the left shoulder. It'll comply with the angle on your spine by going at right angles, and then naturally it will fall into an ellipse. Why do I mention this? Just because I don't want you trying to make a complete turn consciously, because you can't do it correctly. Can't be done correctly. To think of the shoulder, let's think of the start of the shoulder turn. Let's take a hypothetical example. Suppose you stand over the ball before you're ready to hit it 10 seconds. Let's suppose you stand over there 20 seconds. Let's suppose you stand 2 seconds. Don't think of starting this left shoulder until the last second, or at least until the last instant. Might only be a half a second thought. It's a flash thought. Everybody conceives of it differently, but it's not something you're going to stand up to the ball and dwell on and think about for 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds. That'll create rigor mortis. And we'll get into more of the mindset that's necessary to use this starting thought. There's one other thing that I want to mention. We haven't talked about the 4 fundamentals of the golf swing in terms of the forward swing. We've talked about the 4 fundamentals of the golf swing in terms of the backswing. The reason why we do this is because I don't think the forward swing is something that you can think about. It happens too quick. The backswing actually happens too quick. All you can think about in golf is how you get it started. But if you start it correctly, you'll get a forward swing. You'll get a reaction to the action of coiling. You'll coil, you'll uncoil. You'll wind, you'll unwind. You'll take it away, you'll react and come through. Let me show you why. Because in the correct golf swing, he will, and I think maybe you'd better just face them and show them this, right. He will actually, in his correct golf swing, start the swing away in slow motion, and you will see that he will get wound up. Right here, he is pretty well wound already. He has got this turn much more than this. He's like 90% wound already. By the time his arms and his hands get up to all where they're going, to get to the top of where they're going, which centrifugal force forces them to do, this wind-up is going to be finished, and he'll react to it before he gets the club to the top. And therefore, his forward swing will be a reaction to his backswing. But if he should do something wrong, if he should not start with the left shoulder, if he should start with the left hip and the left shoulder, that won't happen. If he should start by not having a wide arc, an extended arc, so that actually his club, his hands get to the top at the same time or before he gets turned, he will not get a reaction now because this will move faster than this because they're both ready to go at the same time. That's a very important concept. So if you say, well, how do I start it down, Carl? How do I start my downswing? I say that you don't have this wound up before your hands get to the top, or you wouldn't be asking yourself that question.